There's been lots of falling glass and that sort of damage, that some of the tops of buildings have fallen off. And there's a good shot of that building across the street, which is a very popular kind of building in this city to live in the Marina district. Although all those little windows representing apartments in an area of town that is popular with its restaurants and its Fisherman's Wharf and its seafront area. The building in the foreground did not catch fire. The building in the background did. For what reason, we are not sure. We have not heard yet whether or not there are any injuries in that building. You can see firemen are on the scene trying to wet down the buildings that are in the foreground, or that are not burning, trying to keep the fire from getting to them. And at this point, they're not having a great deal of success because this fire is burning extremely hot and furious. Just about a block away, this is yet a third building that we spotted that had collapsed out into the street in this particular area of town. Some of the other damage we've heard about in the Oakland area, a part of the Nimitz freeway collapsed. That's an overhead, over and under freeway above ground that goes over the city, and we saw a section of that had totally collapsed with lots of traffic jams in that area. Both the city of all the cities in this area, San Francisco, San Jose, and down the coast of Santa Cruz, all of these cities have called back all of their off-duty policemen, all of their off-duty firemen, mostly on standby at this point.
In the collapse of the eastern portion of the Bay Bridge, and Associated Press is reporting that there are people in the water, or were shortly after that happened. They're not sure if those people are injured or what exactly the status is. That coming from Associated Press, but again, no independent confirmation beyond the reports I've just described.
There is no good time for an earthquake of this magnitude in any metropolitan area, but it hit at a very bad time. 5 o'clock at night, 5:02 to be precise, when it happened. People going home. Mercifully, hopefully, children were out of schoolyards and out of school buildings. That's always a major concern in an earthquake. We're watching of this same fire, this apartment building ablaze and burning ferociously and collapsing, as well as other buildings in that same region that have collapsed, but with no fires. We're switching. This is Evan. Oh, okay, we're back here. We've been switching.
At home just because of the traffic jams. I understood the San Mateo Bridge was shut down. I don't believe there was any problems. I think they did that as a precautionary measure because our office is right at the right near the San Mateo Bridge, and the traffic jam was horrendous because people could not get on, could not get off. It was very difficult. So it was quite interesting. It was a lot more than I have ever experienced.
Baron Foster, there, you are actually in Santa Cruz itself, are you?
No. I'm in Foster City, which is at just about 20 miles south.
It measured 6.9 on the Richter scale. At first, they thought it was 6.5.
Near over the bed with two wall units on either side that support it, and that was moved. My refrigerator was moved out into the middle of the kitchen floor.
Your refrigerator was moved out into the middle of the kitchen floor?
Yeah, my refrigerator moved out into the middle of the floor. So it was interesting because previously we've not experienced any damage other than lights shaking and maybe dishes falling off of the counter if they've been piled up. That's been the most damage I have ever experienced down here, and so this was a lot of damage, and plants and things are all over, so I know there's going to be considerable damage around.
Nimitz freeway completely collapsed. It's not known how many people are under that rubble. One car trapped underneath was on fire. The entire freeway was buckled from the tremendous strength of the quake. There are a number of major fires that continue to rage out of control at this hour. Bay Area residents are being advised to turn off their gas to prevent explosions. The Bay Area rapid transit system that runs below the bay has been shut down. One train and a BART tunnel through the Berkeley Hills had to be evacuated. There are reports of severe property damage as far away as 120 miles south of San Francisco. Electricity remains out throughout a wide portion of the San Francisco Bay Area. Candlestick Park, site of the World Series, has been evacuated so officials can check for damage. And there are two sections of the stadium in right field that was separated by 6 inches from the magnitude of the quake. Marianne Bannister, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
The worst nightmare come true, a major earthquake just when a major sporting event was about to take place, the third game of the World Series. almost 60,000 people in Candlestick Park, and Marianne was talking about the damage to the park. The quake was centered near Santa Cruz, that is 75 miles south of San Francisco. Ann?
All right. We have reports that have been coming in now from Washington, D.C., the Department of Defense.
Few units carrying people away. Other fires as far away as Berkeley. We understand there's quite a bit of damage in the San Benito County, which is several, I believe, let's see, it's about 120 miles south of San Francisco. We have reported severe property damage in San Benito County. Now, earlier someone was asking, I believe it was you and John Kelly, that were asking about the Bay Area rapid transit system that runs below the bay and beneath the city. Well, that was shut down. One train in a tunnel through the Berkeley Hills was evacuated. Of course, when the quake hit, we have reports of people running out of the BART terminals, running for safety. NASA officials have said that a critical Air Force tracking station in Sunnyvale, California, that's going to be used for the flight of the space shuttle Atlantis and its payload, the nuclear
earthquake, I could feel the floor tremble. I turned around to look at my son, 5 rows from me, and looked up at the top of the stadium.
That is the overhang, the concrete overhang.
And I could see the section separating and rocking back and forth like this.
What were people doing? How were they reacting?
Everyone just all of a sudden was silent. Everyone around us was just completely silent. I thought it was going to stop, you know, like they normally do. I thought it was going to stop. It kept going, it kept going. I looked at my son Brett and I said, you stay there, you hold on. It kept going and kept going. And pretty soon, everybody started grabbing on this stuff. It was unbelievable. The light poles were wobbling back and forth. And I thought, this is a little bit more than we need to get the Giants into gear. This is more than what it's going to take. At that, I'm thinking all these things, it's still going. It must have lasted 45 seconds, a minute. It was still going. And I looked up at my son to make sure that he was holding on, because all I could think, we're on the upper level. If that thing decided to let go, so he was going to have a hold of something, and he was about 15 feet away from me.
Now, Larry, we have seen physical evidence of structural damage to this stadium. Tell me what you've seen in that regard.
After everything silenced down, the people were walking around with the walkie-talkies checking for problems. I heard one guy say, check the stairs on 54. We were right by that, so we walked over and looked. And the stairs going up section 54 in the upper deck, there were cracks going all the way up with dust around them that they had just broken.
We have not heard as yet as to whether the Game 3 is going to be played tomorrow. In your opinion, however unofficial it might be, should this stadium be used for baseball or for anything at this point?
I've been coming to the stadium since it opened, and I love the stadium for what it isn't worth. But if we can't play baseball here tomorrow, I don't know where they're going to be able to play.
The question is, would you feel safe here?
I always feel safe here. I felt safe here tonight.
All right. That's going to have to do it for now. Paul and Ann, we'll send it back to you in Los Angeles now.
Thanks, Rick.
Rick, thank you about this earthquake. The World Series and all it entails in Game 3, that is one thing. People's lives, from the looks of it, it doesn't matter how many firemen are there, they're going to take a while putting that out. But as Ann mentioned, all communications are down in the city of San Francisco. Telephone All right, here's the Bay Bridge. There are two major bridges. Correct me, Bill, if I'm wrong. There's the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge. Correct. This is the Bay Bridge that connects San Francisco and Oakland.
To the East Bay.
And what you're looking at now, and I don't know what part of the bridge this is.
This is the upper deck part of the bridge, Paul, on its way into San Francisco, in other words, from east to west.
Reportedly got out all right. So the person who was trapped underneath, perhaps, was because early reports, anyway, were that people in those two cars managed to get out.
We also had
reports. There's a section
that's
squashed the underneath.
We also had reports from one of the radio helicopter pilots in San Francisco that people were seen in the water. That, too, has been unconfirmed up to now.
Again, Paul, this is a major artery transportation.
And it's amazing that more people weren't on that bridge and more cars aren't down there.
Thanks to the World Series.
I think you might be right about that.
We were speculating about that upstairs.
Absolutely.
That possibly they were home watching. They were getting ready to watch it on TV all over the Bay Area. That must be it. There is another section of freeway. It's called the Nimitz Freeway.
This is the Nimitz Freeway. When you go off toward Oakland now and go down the shore of Oakland toward the Oakland airport, this is the Nimitz Freeway. It's a double-decker. It's collapsed. The upper deck is pancaked onto the lower deck of that Nimitz Freeway. So down down toward the Oakland airport, and there are certainly cars caught and people caught
there
in
must
between
be, and
those
we've
two.
heard nothing about that. We've been watching those same
spot of the Bay Bridge. That is part of the section which collapsed. The upper deck, you couldn't see in that picture, but the superstructure of the bridge fell down on the main section. Whether or not that caused that portion of the road to slip down, we cannot tell. But that little car was stuck in the bridge for some considerable time, and we're told there has been a fatality there. Can we hear this fellow? That, unfortunately, is something we cannot hear. There are major fires throughout San Francisco. One in San Francisco itself near the Marina, several reported now during the downtown area, another blazing near the library at the University of California at Berkeley. Now, word of another major fire broken out in Oakland, destruction in many parts of the city.
That fire in the Marina area is rather close to the historic Palace of Fine Arts they're watching.
Pretty damaged, but so far, at least
from the Santa Cruz area, we've heard very little from there.
The reports we have are that there are broken water mains, ground ruptures, there's serious damage to highway systems. There are several major pieces of the interstate highway system around the Bay Area that are closed down. There have been rock slides, there have been major cracks. You know about the damage to the Bay Bridge. Two other bridges in the South Bay have been closed down for inspection, the San Mateo-Hayward Bridge.
There'll be more. This is another shot of the Bay Bridge, the section which collapsed this evening. There's that little car which is sitting, poking down toward the valley where the roadway collapsed into the underside of the bridge. Twisted wreckage of the Bay Bridge, which obviously nobody's using this evening.
No, it's of course closed. The Nimitz freeway is closed. Those, of course, two major arteries in and out of San Francisco, very badly damaged. The Secretary of Transportation is on his way to the
doctors. Today you actually get to touch a patient. Well, Jimmy here doesn't seem to have a heartbeat.
Before they know it, they'll need everything they've learned.
Is she having a kid here? Yes!
No!
I'm out of here.
Give me a shirt. This is silk.
I'm gonna have a baby now.
We got a girl here, Kim. Look at that.
Touchstone Pictures presents Gross Anatomy, rated PG-13.
Starts Friday at a theater near you.
We've got you covered.
Transportation systems around the Bay Area are clogged rather badly. The bridges are shut down. At least two of the Bay Area airports are shut down temporarily. And the highways, several major highways are in serious trouble.
Lieutenant Governor, I don't know whether you're watching your CBS station coverage here. We hope you are. We're showing now a videotape of a damaged automobile on the San Francisco Bay Bridge, and there's a report unconfirmed that someone might be trapped in that car. And what you saw there were efforts of rescue workers to get in and see whether there was anyone in that automobile on the San Francisco Bay Bridge. Now, Jerry Shields, a spokeswoman for the Merritt Hospital in Oakland, California, is on the telephone. Ms. Shields, how many injuries in your hospital?
We've had no injuries in our hospital in terms of employees or volunteers, thank heaven. We certainly did feel the shake. We have had...
This East Bay Transit bus there that just stopped just before the collapsed section.
This is the Bay Bridge. It is not the Golden Gate Bridge. Those are two separate spans.
By the way,
everyone to turn off gas lines because, of course, they have ruptured in so many buildings and could lead to fire. You can see the cracks in this building. This is the Marina district, just right near the water. This fire is still raging at this hour, and it's been going since shortly after 5 o'clock. Still a very difficult. In fact, it appears that they're having the entire block now is ablaze in the area around Jefferson and Divisadero in the Marina district. Let's go to the Bay Bridge, because the Bay Bridge, that is the bridge that connects San Francisco to the East Bay, Oakland and Berkeley, is closed. A section of that, a 50-foot section of the upper deck of the bridge, about a mile from the toll plaza, collapsed. There were automobiles here, as you see now, as night falls, that slid down that section that went onto the lower deck. One goes to the east, one goes to the west. We have seen people taken out of vehicles there. There is one unconfirmed report.
everybody got out, was looking over the side of the bridge and had no idea what they were looking at. And next word you get is you evacuate the bridge. It's collapsed up front. We really weren't all that far from it, and I'm sure people were hurt badly up there. We got back to Treasure Island because that's solid ground. People are standing there, and then what they did was they just took all the cars and drove them off backwards.
Again, that was one of the people who was on the bridge. All of the traffic was stopped. Originally, some of the people have had to leave their vehicles there and walk back to solid ground, but this is the upper deck of the Bay Bridge, and they are clearing that away. But in the East Bay, there is more extensive damage along the 880 freeway in the area between Berkeley and Oakland. And here the problem is collapse. Again, there are two levels here. The freeway has buckled. The top portion coming down upon the bottom. The smoke is perhaps from a
Parts of buildings had collapsed. Did they fall on cars or people?
The one in California fell on some cars, but they had just towed them away. I meant the emergency services in this town were really operating. As you can see, police were just racing through town, putting up these caution signs to keep people from walking under parts of these fallen buildings. But as you can see, without the signs, they were continuing to do that. As night fell, things became a little bit scarier down there, especially on the waterfront, as people tried to make their way down toward the ferry building. You can see this is the City Court building where all of these bricks came down from the side of this wall. One gentleman told me that these two buildings literally separated and then came back together. And then you've got the foliage of bricks down to the street. It just sheared off a tree. And luckily, you know, it was after 4 o'clock, so there's no parking along most of these streets. So that's why there were not really that many cars in that area.
I mean, given the length of the earthquake and the 7-point severity of it, I'm struck by how little damage, in fact, there is.
Yes, well, this is what we saw happening all over the city. Because if the sidewalks and the roadways are all cracked so badly, they were shutting off as many gas mains as they could. So firemen were all over town trying to shut off these gas mains. But wherever we looked, buildings were cracked and plaster was down. And this was another serious gas leak again. And the big thing was to keep people with cigarettes away from this area. But you can see here, see how the roadway separated right down the middle of there. That's on Sacramento Street, right down by the Embarcadero Freeway. This is the roadway which was had fallen apart there. And people who were...
All right, that was Belva Davis reporting from Crown in San Francisco in Union Square, which is where the Hyatt and St. Francis hotels are located.
St. Francis, the Hilton, the new Nordstroms, the Macy's, Emporium Capitol, iMagnum. Several high-rises in that area. They're very fortunate that few people were hurt, but again, 6 people were crushed when a 4-story building in one part of the city collapsed.
This is Marina District Fire in San Francisco, one which we've shown before, again emphasizing there have been some fires breaking out in San Francisco and in other areas, but the surprise thus far is how few fires we have seen and have been reported. That's along with the surprise of how few deaths have been confirmed thus far, and how few serious injuries have been confirmed, given the magnitude of the earthquake.
The district looks much like that now, only it's pitch black. You can't see anything. There the people are going away. In this scene, there were mothers carrying children. The babies were crying. People in an almost a state of organized...
We're all going up to Chestnut.
But controlled panic.
Still a danger of explosion at this point?
I don't think so. Right about this time, they turned the gas off. There again, you see the way the streets have buckled up. Some people wandering around, sort of taking it in. Other people wishing they could help. Again now, if you'll see that garage in the background, on the left-hand portion, underneath that house, police were looking for someone. They thought they heard sounds. And in a few moments of this videotape, I don't know how much because we haven't looked at it, you will see people saying, be quiet, be quiet. Again, there's where the front of the house has fallen into the street, and you can walk right up and look into someone's second-story apartment. It's surreal.
That's a report from our sister station, KRON, in San Francisco about the damage in the Marina area. Very populated area, and in fact, people who live in Marin County and work in San Francisco travel that route every day to get from one area to the other.
Of course, San Francisco is a peninsula.
Just below me is where this crack in the Bay Bridge occurred, a 50-foot section. You see down there below the two cars that were on the upper deck when the bridge collapsed. They fell below. We understand that the people in both of those cars did get out safely. We do not know the extent of injuries at this point. Down below us, where this fell down, there were people describing it as a garage door
plunged into the abyss. Now here is raw videotape. Here is their raw videotape, and then a replay of their appearance here in our newsroom just about an hour ago. Let's take a look.
Oakland Bay Bridge, just a little bit after the earthquake. They sent us down here, surprisingly, in the wrong direction. There's another car. Gosh! That could have been us, but yeah, that could have been us, but we just turned around. Thomas, we need to go down there and help.
This is the video that you actually shot, Thomas. Debbie, can you tell us what we're seeing here? Now, you're right at the front of this.
Yeah, we are. We came up on it, and then we turned around. We saw the break in the bridge, and we turned around, and I pulled out the camera when we saw this.
Look at this.
Oh, my gosh. And that was my reaction, oh, my gosh. And I just froze. We couldn't believe it.
All right. Now, you could see the break at that point?
Yes, we had just turned around. We were sent up there with about 100 other vehicles, and it was sort of mass confusion when we got to this break. But these two cars were quite a ways back behind the rest of the group.
Thomas, you say you were sent up there. Were they already aware of damage? We understand the first three. Here's the slow motion which we've put together of this car going off the edge. You were given permission to go up there after the quake.
It was a mistake. They sent about 100 cars by mistake.
Told us to turn right at the bridge.
Turn right and go across. And when we saw it, we decided this is not what we need to do.
Well, that video is very, very frightening. I understand that we had 2 serious injuries. We don't know if those people in the car were injured. I can imagine just by looking at the video, I assume they were. We had 1 death reported from the Bay Bridge tragedy tonight and 2 serious injuries at this point. There may be more later. We certainly hope not.
2 cars that we know of when there was that collapse slid down that particular section and landed on the lower deck.
Yeah, that was
earlier.
Home video, a couple visiting us from Oklahoma.
Shortly after the quake hit, and
give us a warning before you come back so we can stand
structures, all of those things causing such great devastation. We had a report from Hollister that a JCPenney store collapsed in Hollister. Here you can see some of the fire and getting an actual handle on it, and it's going to be some time before we do have a complete picture on it. So tomorrow...
Section after section collapsed, and it was about a mile long. They're now saying that the death toll here could be more than 200. It's easy to see how that could happen. The powerful forces of nature that have visited us now in the last 2 months. Hurricane Hugo sweeping ashore in the southeast. Now this earthquake, 6.9. For all of our fancy construction, all of our dreams, all of our...
Interrupted. As you might expect, it was a bad moment for the people in Candlestick Park. More than 60,000 of them. The stadium...
We got some structural damage.
And that was Will Clark talking about what had happened. We're told that...
Students. There are 15 schools there, 12 elementary and 3 junior high. Again, they will be closed. The Superintendent Joe
Homes along Marina Boulevard, and the boats then there too. Did you see any boats that were damaged?
I did not get a chance to see the boats, but that parking lot that is right where the boats are is buckled up. It is just one bump after another. And the buildings along Marina Boulevard, I didn't see any of those collapsed as you did a couple of blocks up, but you did see a lot of cracks in buildings.
I wonder if anybody had a chance to check the Palace of Fine Arts, which...
we did drive around the Palace of Fine Arts. It's still standing, but of course, you know, it's been around since 1915, so...
Yes.
In any case, you can see that people are concerned about their relatives, worried that they didn't make it home safe. This is in San Mateo County, where the damage... We have reports there were no deaths in San Mateo
County. The AmFac Hotel, perhaps, or this is the AmFac Hotel where some people were injured when some of the walls came down. But luckily, no deaths in San Mateo County. Late word, too, that all schools in the...
50 to 100,000 customers in the San Francisco area are without gas right now, and we've been telling you the precautions. We will tell you them again a little bit later on.
Yes. As Mark Gibson mentioned earlier, we had done our regular news program, pre-game program, from 4 until 5 o'clock. And then the World Series, of course, began here on ABC and Channel 7 at 5. The quake struck at 4 minutes after 5. And, of course, ABC was on the air at the time it happened with Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Let's take a look. We have that actual broadcast that as we were then kicked off the air, but here is that.
5-1 ball game, but let's go back to the top of the third inning. Will Clark, the batter. The Giants have not had the lead in these two games. A 3-2 count, a split finger fastball by Mike Moore, pounced on by Terry Steinbach, the Oakland catcher. But look at the tough throw that he had to complete the play with Brett Butler running between him and Clark. Flash forward to the bottom of the fourth inning. Dave Parker, barely by inches, just misses a home run. Candy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base.
Okay, you can see that is what happened when ABC was on the air when the earthquake struck San Francisco. It obviously knocked them out, knocked all of us out. Many of us who work in this industry were off the air for quite a while. I think KGO was back on within about 10 minutes.
We were on with about 10 minutes, and you were on, and we've had generating emergency. I'm starting to get tired, aren't I?
Fires that broke out and could not be controlled. This time,
also, the BART area, the Bay Area Rapid Transit System that was closed shortly after this quake hit. Let's go to that tape now.
One of the marvelous things that happens in emergencies like this is that those people with resources don't hesitate to make them available. We're here at Pier 21 where the Red and White Fleet ferries dock to take people across the bay. Just seconds ago, a Red and White ferry took about 500 people to Jack London Square in Oakland, and there are thousands more who are happy that the Red and White ferries are working, because that's just about the only means of transportation to get across the bay. The bridges aren't open, and of course BART isn't running its trains under the bay. There's, as I said, thousands of people here. Mark is one of them trying to get to the East Bay. This ferry's going to take you to the Jack London Square. What are you going to do after that?
We'll hopefully take a taxi or a bus and get to a BART train that is running and get out to the further ends of the East Bay, Pleasant Hill.
Pleasant Hill is where you're ending up.
Right, right.
And what time should you have been there?
Oh, about 6 o'clock.
And so you're going to have a long day today.
A long and very adventurous day.
I would say so. One you can talk about for a long time.
Yes. I rode through the earthquake. I tried to get to the East Bay, going over the Golden Gate Bridge. I gave up. I waited for BART. Just about everything that could happen's happened.
Yeah. Pretty scary, too, huh?
It's been scary, but people have been very courteous and supportive. The Hyatt had a buffet lunch for out on the plaza, and people have been very kind. There's just a lack of information, so as we hear about one opportunity like this, we come down and just try it. So this one looks good.
Well, good luck. Okay. Yeah. The people here have been very orderly, all things considered, because most of them have had long days, and the Red and White Fleet isn't charging any money. It's a free trip, and officials of the company say that they don't know how long they'll do it tonight and perhaps tomorrow, but as long as it goes, it goes. From Pier 1, I'm Ben Williams. Back to you.
All right, that was, again, Ben Williams, and that is...
Section, one piece at a time, then going back down the hook and ladder and driving up about half a block and again peeking in from where the top deck had fallen into the lower deck to see if there were any survivors. There are people who are still possibly alive inside, and we don't know how they determine when it's safe to actually go in and do the excavations. But we're waiting for word here from Oakland officials, and as I said, apparently the Army and Coast Guard officials are flying overhead at this very moment, taking a look at...
This casualty count we have, by some counts, 271 dead. Damage at least $1 billion, perhaps as many as 650 people injured. The president today declared the 7 Northern California counties federal disaster areas. Just a few minutes ago, the president went over to FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is managing the disaster relief efforts for the government. He got a briefing there. And then on the way out, he talked a bit with reporters, and we're going to pick up a bit of that now.
It had a drill on a hurricane, a disaster of this nature, an earthquake disaster, not so many weeks ago. And they'd been through a lot of the procedures that are now being followed. And in a sense, if there's anything good out of a disaster of this nature, it is that the agency was well prepared to task the component agencies to be effective. And we talked to the representative of the governor of California, who was highly appreciative of the work that FEMA is doing. So I think the machinery is working. We've made very clear we want to be as responsive as possible on behalf of the federal government. And they're still in a sorting out process in terms of the total damage. So that's about where we stand.
President Bush talking to reporters this morning just a minute ago at FEMA headquarters, the federal agency in Washington that is coordinating the disaster relief efforts. We want to get the latest on the ground in San Francisco now. And we have
right in here where a little hole was dug, a kind of a cave. There was a woman trapped there for 3 hours last night while fire department crews worked to get her out. There may still be people inside of this building. Nobody knows, again, how many victims. Right now, the task at hand is to get some heavy equipment in, but it's a kind of a random pattern, a checkerboard. Right here, I can count 1, 2, 5, 8 buildings that look like they have some serious structural problems, if in fact they haven't collapsed. But all around the marina, I don't want to give you the impression that it's widespread as if there's been a bombing raid over the entire district. It isn't like that. There are concentrated spots here and there where there is quite a bit of damage, and then there are other areas where there is traffic and there were people who stayed there last night. These areas that are roped off, I believe that this entire...
Now that was reporter Reed Galen of our San Francisco affiliate KPIX. That was recorded just a minute ago. We want to go now to FEMA headquarters in Washington, where CBS News correspondent Mark Phillips is standing by. We're expecting a briefing
to be applied to the situation in Northern California. Included in the disaster declaration are 7 counties plus the city of San Francisco. What this will allow is for federal money to go into temporary housing, into grants, into low-cost loans to cover uninsured property, business property losses, and other programs. And
much more politely than during the normal rush hour. You've had people really helping each other out. Over in the Marina district, which has been so hard hit, you go to the school and everybody's putting up a little note saying if they've got a spare bedroom to take care of somebody who's been homeless. So I think San Francisco is a uniquely civilized city, and what we've had is a uniquely civilized response to the earthquake. And that's been the good news that's come out of the horrible news this week, is how well and civilized people have behaved.
Randy Schultz, always a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks for being here. Randy Schultz of the San Francisco Chronicle. And Good Morning America will continue in a moment with more coverage of the California earthquakes.